So there's a lot of controversy around carbohydrate intake. What are the right levels of carbohydrates for particular activity? Are we generally eating too much sugar in society, and is that one of the root causes of the obesity epidemic? And the simple fact of the matter is that carbs are one of the body's preferred sources of fuel, and they are rate limiting in that generally if you run out of carbohydrates, your performance will rapidly drop off as well. They're rate limiting because the body prefers to burn them at a higher intensity of exercise when you compare it to the ability the body has to burn fat. So essentially, at lower intensities of exercise, your body burns more fat. As you exercise more intensively, you burn more carbohydrates. And then when you're doing really, really high intensity, short duration stuff, you burn creatine phosphate as part of a different energy system. So as your body's preferred and rate limiting source of energy, then for sports, for performance, for training intensively, you must have adequate carbohydrates stored in the muscle as glycogen in order to exercise intensively and exercise for a long period of time. Now, the body stores carbohydrate in the muscle as glycogen. With each gram of glycogen is around 3 grams of water. So if for example you began a low carbohydrate diet to drop body fat, what you would find is as you were using up the carbs, exercising and training, then your total body weight would drop. But actually, that would only reflect a drop in sugar and water weight. For an average person, that might be 2 kilos or thereabouts. So an average weight person can store around about 400 grams of glycogen in all the muscles, and around 100 grams in the liver. So let's say 500 grams of stored glycogen in the muscles and the liver. So if you combine that with 3 grams of water, then you've got about 2 kilos for your average person. Obviously, if you're very big and very muscly, you can store more. And if you're quite small and petite with a low muscle mass, you'll store a bit less. But that's interesting, because if you think that your body will almost never be in a state of complete glycogen depletion, because you'd have to exercise to exhaustion around all the muscle groups in the body. And if you imagine a pot of honey, a standard pot of honey is 500 grams of carbs. So if you exercise completely to exhaustion, all you need to do is eat 1 pot of honey to completely glycogen replenish. So we have to be quite careful about glycogen loading strategies, in that you want to have just enough to be fully loaded, but not too much where you might convert the excess sugars and the excess calories into stored body fat. So what this when I was thinking about this years ago in terms of team-based sports, when they're playing a Saturday routine, is that you can employ a strategy called carbohydrate cycling. And what this means essentially is for 3 or 4 days, if you want to lose body fat, you run things a little bit leaner. So you create a deficit from carbohydrates, just fueling and recovering from your activity with carbohydrate meals pre and post. But the rest of the time you replace starchy carbohydrates with fibrous carbohydrates, grow above the ground carbohydrates. And then from, say, Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, you begin loading on your starches, but remembering that 500 or 600 or maybe 700 grams of carbohydrate, glycogen, is all that a very large rugby player will be able to store. So across those 3 days, allowing for them not to be completely depleted, you might just be drip feeding in an extra 25-30 grams in the meals across a day, so that they can absorb it without making fat. One of the things that has happened over the years is all the early research on carbohydrates was focused on sort of marathon runners, and it's a it's the essential fuel for that type of a race. But what then happened is that research was then applied to like team-based, power-based sports, And so the recommendations of 8, 9, 10 grams of carbohydrate per kilo body mass. What we found is that if you're getting a front row forward to eat that many grams of carbohydrates, they just got really fat and really unhealthy. And nowadays, most of the academics and researchers have really moderated their carbohydrate recommendations down to somewhere between 3 and 5 grams of carbohydrate per kilo, and then employing much more of these carbohydrate cycling type strategies where you eat to fuel, you eat to recover, and you eat according to your body composition targets. So that's so carbs for performance, understanding about glycogen loading as an essential part of performing at your highest intensity, recovering adequately with carbohydrates, understanding that if you go on a lower carbohydrate diet, the initial weight loss will just be from water and sugar, and on the flip side, as soon as you begin eating normally, the weight gain will be from water and sugar and not from fat. And then looking to cycle carbohydrates across a weekly activity pattern leading into matches on a Saturday cycle.